Good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to request all of you to please settle down and join us in singing the Philippine National Anthem.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, ewas ng siganganan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa mandulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng bangaw, ay hinagang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nagkikinig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magkikinig. Luwag ang araw ng walhagit pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang ligaya na pagkay mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Good afternoon. My name is Ivan Robles, and welcome to the DOST's virtual presser on the non-environmentally acceptable plastics, or NEAP. We thank everyone for being with us today as we discuss with you the different accomplishments and initiatives of the department relative to the environment, and in particular to solid waste management. First, let me go over a few reminders to guide us on how to interact in today's session. For our webinar participants, we would like to request you to observe proper chat etiquette by not typing in capital letters and refraining from using vulgar words. For your questions, kindly type them in the Q&A chat box, and we will be attending to them later. For our speakers, we would like to request you to be on mute to avoid disruptions and background noise. Kindly turn them on later when you're about to speak together with your camera. Kindly turn them off again after you speak. Later, during the Q&A, we would like to request all of our speakers to turn on your cameras but stay on mute. Kindly unmute when we direct the question to you. Today's webinar is recorded and will be used for documentation. We all know that plastics are a pervasive material in Philippine society, as it is used in groceries, packaging, construction, technology, and other innovations. This wide range of applications and usage only makes it reasonable for us for the phenomenal growth of its consumption and a considerable amount of municipal solid waste. Unfortunately, the majority of plastics are non-biodegradable and over time breaks into small pieces that enter the natural environment, especially in bodies of water and landfills. One of the problems encountered in solid waste management is single-use plastics. These materials are utilized only once prior they are recycled or discarded. So this includes those who are in food packaging, grocery bags, straws. And there have been a clamor of banning these materials. They are blamed for clogging canals and causing harm to marine life. It is in this light that government seeks the removal of SUPs in the market and the search for substitutes through research and development. Today, we shall see how DOST has responded to this and how we are continuing to use research, development, and innovation in coming up with solutions and opportunities to address NEAP. Our first speaker today is none other than the father of DOST. To give us the opening statement for this virtual presser, please welcome DOST Secretary Fortunato T. de la Peña.
Warm greetings to everyone. I am pleased to be with the group led by Pichard and by our Undersecretary Rowena Guevara, and also with our R&D Institute, which is celebrating its 128th anniversary today, the Industrial Technology Development Institute, and other co-workers. As well, I would like to mention that the Department of Science and Technology remains at the forefront in providing technologies, programs, and projects that will address the issues and concerns on the environment, including solid waste management. Over the past 11 years, so since 2010, the Department of Science and Technology has provided a total amount of 532 million pesos to support 146 projects that seek to address environmental challenges. These projects have been implemented in various parts of the country and with the different institutions as partners, as implementers of the research projects, and the technologies that have been generated by these projects have been adapted at various levels. So depende na po doon sa mga adaptor, sila na ang nagde-decide kung gaano kabilis at anong extent ng adoption ang kanilang gagawin. DOST maintains an equal consideration of all sectors in the implementation of its projects. We believe in the whole of nation approach or the whole of society approach in addressing environmental concerns. Lalo na po itong concerns sa solid waste management. We believe in having all hands on deck in a science-based approach in our phase-out of non-environmentally acceptable products, or the NEAPs, with utmost consideration to environmental protection, to sustainable development, to economic viability, and social activity. So remember, there are four considerations. We are in constant collaboration with our partners in government, in the academe and industry, in providing appropriate technologies, programs, and projects that will address the phase-out of non-environmentally acceptable plastics. And we are willing to partner with stakeholders who will be one in our mission on protecting the environment. Moving forward, we reiterate our call to our fellow workers in government to join us in finding innovative solutions that will help the country address the concerns on solid waste management and in the pursuit of a circular economy. We urge for a wider adoption of technologies on the NEAPs which have been developed by our researchers. Meanwhile, we are also continuously looking out for more innovative ways that will provide environmentally sustainable alternatives to the so-called non-environmentally acceptable plastics for our citizens. So we hope that you will learn from today's virtual presser where we have our experts available. Marami pong salamat at magandang hapon sa inyong lahat.
Thank you very much, Secretary de la Peña. We now move on to give us further detail on the R&D accomplishments and initiatives of DOST on the environment, solid waste, and on NEAPs. Please welcome DOST Undersecretary for Research and Development, Dr. Rowena Cristina Guevara. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Thank you, Ivan. Good afternoon. DOST Secretary Fortunato T. de la Peña, DOST Undersecretary Renata Suladun, DOST Pichard Executive Director Enrico Paringit, DOST ITDI Director Annabel Briones, esteemed colleagues and guests, our dear friends from media, magandang adham po sa inyong lahat. Plastic is a pervasive material. It is used in groceries, packaging, construction, technologies, and innovations. However, Majority of plastics are non-biodegradable and over time break into smaller pieces that enter the natural environment, especially bodies of water and landfills. There have been a clamor to ban single-use plastics as they are blamed for clogging canals and causing harm to marine life. However, single-use plastics are often used because they are cheap, economical, adaptive, and accessible to all. The Department of Science and Technology has been at the forefront of finding ways to address solid waste management. Through the local technologies we generate from research and development, we make positive changes happen in our environment. In consultation with stakeholders, the DOST-STII spearheaded the development of the Sustainable S&T Solid Waste Management Roadmap with a vision of a circular economy with solid waste pollution-free environment. Shown on this roadmap are the vision, overall strategies, possible solutions, milestones, and overall outcomes for human resource, R&D technologies, facilities and services, and S&T policies. One of the main drivers of DOST's environmental protection activities are our initiatives geared towards a green economy. It is divided into 4 key segments. First, think green, which is understanding and planning for a circular economy. Second, make green, which includes green processes and technologies. Third is turn green, which is getting value from wastes. And fourth, keep green, which outlines waste treatment technologies. In Think Green, programs were developed to understand and plan for a circular economy. NVTEC's scoping study is one of the methods used to identify key pollutants in an area and options for waste management. This study in Valenzuela City will gather data and survey industrial plants that will be used to determine proper waste management technology appropriate for NCR. Project IWASTO under the IM for Manila Bay program aims to describe and assess the solid waste management activities in selected cities that are part of the Manila Bay watershed and develop integrated solid waste information and technology management system considering current conditions and future scenarios. For Make Green, projects to develop green degradable polymers from plant-based oils and investigation on its subsequent functionalization and utility as heavy metal sequestrants are being conducted. One initiative of DOST in finding alternatives to plastics is the University of the Philippines Los Baños project on polyhydroxyalkanoates or PHA from agricultural residues from corn stover, sugarcane bagasse, and banana pseudostem. PHA is bio-based and 100% biodegradable. The 2-year project studies waste to energy process by direct combustion as possible solution to ever-increasing municipal solid waste production in the Philippines. The researchers will be setting up a 25 kilowatt waste-to-energy facility at the University of the Philippines Los Baños, fed with solid waste generated by UP Los Baños constituents, and is proposed to be integrated in the solid waste management plan of the university. Technologies for solid waste that are already available for adoption at the DOST-STII TDI include the following. First is the thermal processing of industrial wastes by pyrolysis, the design and testing of a thermal processing equipment that will use industrial wastes. Second is the preliminary assessment on the safety of commercially available degradable plastic on food and non-food packaging. These are studies on the properties of the locally available degradable plastics and will establish the functional lifetime of the material as a function of the physical and chemical properties, addressing the safety of degradable plastics in all axes of utilization. The third is the production of refuse-derived fuel from biomass plastic wastes as alternative fuel. The fourth is a comparative study on the effect of the use of different additives in the market on oxo-biodegradation of polyethylene plastic bags. Assessment of potentially non-environmentally acceptable products or packaging meaning to say conduct of life cycle assessment of HDPE and LLDPE grocery bags and polystyrene paper. This is a project that assessed the life cycle environmental impacts of the production, use, and disposal of grocery bags available from Metro Manila supermarkets and identified the material and energy usage, emissions, waste flows of the product, process, or service over its entire life cycle to determine its environmental performance. Second is the production of biodegradable products from plasticized starch or clay and biocomposites. We also have biodegradable plastics from cassava starch. We have a fluidized bed combustion and gasification of refuse-derived fuel from biomass plastic waste for heat and power. The economic and life cycle analysis of single-use plastics in the Philippines aims to provide a scientific information on the economic and life cycle assessment of specific single-use plastics vis-a-vis their alternatives to help in crafting a responsive policy to manage environmental impacts from the use of such materials. Through the funding received from DOST-Philippines, most of the project roadmap for years 2017 to 2021 were already accomplished. The remaining major activities of the project this year are the 5-liter bioreactor optimization, the 30 to 100-liter scale-up operation, and market feasibility. The concern for the environment goes beyond preservation. The DOST takes its role to heart in providing innovative solutions by adopting green values and technologies that will help us navigate through the challenging times. Our objective of having a greener future necessitates the role of science, technology, and innovation in our decision making. As we adopt new technologies and new systems in the new normal, we must also create new behaviors, practices, and ways of living that will better support our planet's health. Indeed, R&D can make change happen for a greener future and a better tomorrow. Samahan niyo po kami at patunayan po natin na maganda po ang agham at tayo po ay sumuporta sa ating mga green alternatives and innovations. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Yusek Gev. Napakarami na po ng mga technologies talaga na na-generate na ng DOST for the environment. One of the key components as well that was mentioned earlier in addressing solid waste management is a whole-of-nation approach wherein we have key stakeholders in government, industry, and academia pitching in to help solve the problem. To elaborate more on this, please welcome DOST-Philippines Council for Industry, Energy, and Emerging Technology Research and Development Executive Director, Dr. Enrico C. Paringit. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. The DOST-Philippine Council for Industry, Energy, and Emerging Technology Research and Development supports a harmonized approach towards protecting the environment through research, development, and innovation. Concern for the environment has been one of the primary criteria considered by the Council in the conceptualization of projects, their evaluation, all the way to their implementation by researchers and innovators. As we aspire for solutions to address our pressing environmental challenges, we consistently endeavored to collaborate with partners in government, in the academe, and with the industry to ensure that we achieve that common goal of environmental sustainability. Addressing the issue of the NEAP or the non-environmentally acceptable products and the single-use plastics or SUPs is no less different. To exemplify this team player approach, we have 10 existing partnerships with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, which includes being part of the National Solid Waste Management Commission. We sit on various multi-agency subgroups and contribute in the different programs and technical working groups to tackle issues that range from mining to climate change. We have also managed and monitored 57 research projects wherein we have cooperating beneficiaries like DNR. These research projects, which started as early as 2006, are now in the various stages of commercialization and adoption by various stakeholders. To promote further synergy, together with the Department of Finance, the Climate Change Commission, the Department of Trade and Industry, and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and government agencies, we are organizing a joint conference slated July 30, 2021, to highlight our collective effort in addressing the phase-out of the NEAP and offer alternative technologies we can use as substitutes. We are optimistic that this conference will be a good venue, therefore, to consolidate efforts and find convergence in our approaches. Our collaborations with the academe and R&D institutions have brought about technological achievements. It is our expectation that our partners in government will adopt this as a matter of policy, and for our industries will adopt this as a matter of technology transfer. We have spurred the development of 26 different environmentally related technologies in various stages of commercialization and adoption. Further, we are still pouring in an additional 110 million in the next 5 years to keep up with our evolving needs as a nation and to keep up also with advancements in technologies. In search of technological solutions, we equally value our partnerships with industry as exemplified by their involvement, starting from the identification of problems and for trying out solutions or prototypes stemming from our R&D efforts. We value their participation and contributions in this exercise, and we are happy and proud whenever we receive expressions of intent to adopt the technologies. In closing, the USTP Shared believes that in addressing every environmental challenge that come our way, as a people and as a nation, partnerships and collaborations should play a central role. We commit to continuously initiate, enhance, and expand these collaborations with our valued partners in the academe, in the government, and industry as we work together in achieving environmental sustainability, economic prosperity, and social inclusivity. Thank you very much and magandang hapon po sa ating lahat.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paringit. Our last, but definitely not the least speaker this afternoon, will share to us how our researchers are contributing in coming up with game-changing innovations to seek to address our environmental concerns. Please welcome DOST Industrial Technology Development Institute Director Dr. Annabel Briones.
Thank you, Ivan. Secretary Fortunato T. de la Peña, Undersecretary Renato Solidum, Undersecretary Rowena Cristina Guevara, Director Enrico Palingit, friends of from the media, DOST colleagues, good afternoon. The DOST-ITDI has always been supportive of the country's efforts and programs to address waste management concerns. With the enactment of the RA number 9003, otherwise known as the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000, the Institute had initiated projects to address solid waste management problems in the country. Following the waste management hierarchy, the most preferred options were avoidance and reduction. Aside from the green technologies presented earlier by Yusek Guevara, let me walk you through what the DOST-ITDI has done and will do to manage solid waste. Among the technologies developed by DOST-ITDI from 2000 to 2009 was a bioreactor for converting biodegradable waste into compost and the produced methane used as an alternative fuel, adopted by many local government units, among them Vigan, Santa Cruz Laguna, Ozami City, Muntinlupa, Marikina, Smoky Mountain in Metro Manila. Second is the plastic densifier for converting waste plastics such as polystyrene and polyethylene in paving blocks by melting them in heated used cooking oil, addressing the problem of both plastic waste and used cooking oil disposal. Third is the application of waste plastic bags to improve the strength of asphalt concrete. Fourth is to develop cement kiln co-processing guidelines in partnership with the GIZ of Germany and the Cement Manufacturers Association of the Philippines. The guidelines are for using combustible waste like plastics to substitute coal as fuel in cement production. Fifth is the clay lining for a sanitary landfill in Bais, Negros Oriental, and that used the reformulated bentonite to prevent leachate migration to groundwater. Sixth is the portable biogas digester that is suitable for households made of high-density polyethylene drums. One unit could provide the cooking requirements of a family of 5. With these initial initiatives, the Institute pursued to be more responsive to the needs of communities for proper management of their municipal solid waste. In succeeding years, the DOST-STII embarked on technologies appropriate for barangays and smaller communities with the help of accredited fabricators. At the same time, guidelines had been developed and adopted by the National Solid Waste Management Commission through appropriate resolutions. These technologies and guidelines include the dual drum in vessel composter, household drum composter, electric plastic densifier, guidelines on waste-to-energy technologies, and guidelines on waste analysis characterization study. Most recently, the DOST provided support to the approved Cabinet Cluster resolution of the Cabinet Cluster on Climate Change Adaptation and Mitigation and Disaster Risk Reduction based on the following consideration. Number 1, government decisions and policy formulation must have a scientific rationale. Second, sustainability on use of environmentally friendly products must reduce carbon footprints. Number 3, impacts on trade, consumer protection, and safety are important considerations as well as environmental protection. Fourth, potential increase in cost of consumer goods based on the prices of alternative materials. Fifth, effects on local companies and their workers who may be affected by phase out. And 6, life cycle approach and design for the environment on alternatives. Thus, aligned to these considerations while aiming to be more relevant to current needs, DOST-STII current and future R&D directions in this area are focused on the following: establishing testing facilities for plastic and alternative materials. Through the Bureau of Philippine Standards, appropriate product standards are being developed for adoption to ensure that local companies producing biodegradable plastics conform to product requirements and international standards. DOST-STII will expand its testing services and research and development capabilities for biodegradability tests. Testing on the biodegradability of polymers would be necessary, as we do not want to solve a problem that would generate another problem. Several alternative products have come forward, but this will have to be evaluated not only on their performance, but also on their end of life to determine appropriate recycling, treatment, or disposal methods. Among the test methods currently being assessed is the publicly available standards PES 9017 on biodegradability testing of polymers. Some of these products that have PES 9017, the biodegradability test, are Polymateria, BiologyQ, Biomate, among others. DOST-STII is establishing the Green and Sustainable Packaging Technology Laboratory, and we are hoping to be this will be operational at the latter part of the year, that advocates for alternative packaging materials to systematically consider the design performance to environmental, health, safety, and sustainability objectives over the entire product and process life cycle. Current alternatives in the market must be studied in terms of product protection, consumer safety, and sustainability that protect the food against environmental hazards in the supply chain. Life cycle assessment is one of the tools identified as possible basis for the non-environmentally acceptable product declaration. The results in the conduct of a life cycle assessment of products, packaging materials, and their alternatives could help policymakers in future actions pertaining to materials that may be declared as non-environmentally acceptable products under RA 9003. Moreover, the outcome may benefit different stakeholders to make necessary modifications in their importation, manufacture, processing, distribution, sale, and post-consumer activities. Considering the recommendation of the National Solid Waste Management Commission evaluating plastic spoons, forks, knives, and plastic bags with less than 15 micron thickness, DOST-ITDI, with the support of DOST-Philippines, is now commencing a life cycle assessment of these materials and their alternatives. Aside from the life cycle assessment, DOST-ITDI researchers shall also consider the potential economic impact of regulating or banning these single-use plastics. Effects on hygiene on the use of these materials shall also be evaluated to ensure no detrimental impacts on human health. In implementing the economic and life cycle analysis of single-use plastics in the Philippines, the DOST-ITDI research team shall utilize the mixed methods research for investigating processes and systems as healthcare and the environment in general. Quantitative methodologies shall be used to address research questions about causality, generalizability, or magnitude of effects. On the other hand, qualitative methods shall explore why or how a phenomenon occurs, develop a theory, or describe the nature of an individual's experience. As such, the DOST-ITDI ensures the management of the three legs of sustainable development. The study on the economic and life cycle analysis of single-use plastics in the Philippines shall address environmental protection and economic growth and social well-being of the current and future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Briones. We'll now go to our questions from the media. We'd like to recognize as well the OST Undersecretary for Scientific and Technical Services, Dr. Renato Solidum. Thank you, sir, for joining us this afternoon. So for our first question, this one is from Mr. Jonathan Mayuga of Business Mirror. The DNR has identified coffee plastic stirrers and soft drink straws among its candidates for NEAP. Was DOST part of the process that identified the two candidates for NEAP listing? If not, when can we see the DOST recommending a list for NEAP listing as mandated by the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000? Or the officials?
Can we ask Engineer Ray Esguerra of DOST-ITDI to answer? Alternative representative to the National Solid Waste Committee. Go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, the NEAP list is the task of the National Solid Waste Management Commission. So it's the commission that would come up with the list. And well, this coffee stirrer and the plastic straw was initially a rapid assessment was conducted by ITDI. However, the data that was utilized were all foreign data. So we would want to make sure that any of the recommendations we make would have a very sound basis. That's why they were initially considered, but still we need to validate all the entire environmental impact of these products and their alternatives before we could really make a very a conclusion on the declaration of NEAP for these items. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next question po, in a recent study by Netherlands-based Ocean Cleanup, it said that 19 out of the 50 most plastic polluting rivers in the world are from the Philippines, and Pasig River is at the top of the list. What policies or programs can the DOST recommend or being crafted to fully zero the throwing of plastic wastes in river systems and bodies of water? Officials po?
May I begin answering it?
Yes, ma'am.
When you talk about throwing the plastic to Pasig River, that one is cannot be changed by science. That is a social practice, and our wish is that that is going to be addressed by the local government units by having a very good solid waste disposal system. Now, for the technologies that can be used, I will ask Dr. Annabelle and Dr. Eric and Engineer Ray to give the answers.
Yes po. Dr. Annabelle?
Okay. In support to that, not throwing the plastics through the river. So the local government units, we are assisting them to come up with their MRF, material recovery facility, and the practice of a good segregation of their solid waste. So, and then we have technologies that can be applied for our biocomposter, our biogas digester, our pyrolyzer, electric densifier, among others that could help the local government units in recycling and coming up with reusable byproducts after recycling of this plastic waste.
So, Doc Annabelle, what you're saying is, pag imbis na itapon nila doon sa sa river, makolekta yan ng government, tapos mare-purpose natin by doing the processing using your technologies. Makagawa ng mga silya para sa schools at saka iba pang mga products.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Yusek Guevara. Yes, Dr. Eric. Sir, you're on.
Sorry. Yeah, in addition to what Director Annabelle had mentioned, may I mention a few projects that we're currently implementing or monitoring, no? That would actually help address the issue. Nabanggit na rin ito kanina slightly ni Yusek Gev, no? Pero halimbawa, we have the IWASTO program, no? Yung Integrated Waste Analysis Survey and Technologies Options under the I Am for Manila Bay program. Ito yung aming contribution sa DOST doon sa programa na pinapatupad para doon sa Manila Bay, para sa clean up ng Manila Bay. This study actually tries to look at how we how does waste go into Manila Bay eventually, and what kind of wastes, and then afterwards what kind in what channels do they go to, and obviously Pasig River is one of them. So when they were studying it, they found out certain behaviors that led people to act this way, and then therefore they also identified key technologies, and the technologies are coming from ITDI themselves, so they were trying to look at mixing and matching certain technologies for certain types of situations. Halimbawa, pag malapit ka sa ilog, ganito yung technology para sa'yo para mas mabawasan yung pagtatapon ng malapit sa ilog, so there are key strategies. So we're at a stage where we're trying to look at possible appropriate technologies for the right kind of situations or the right kind of places, to process biodegradable and plastic waste in selected communities. So abangan nyo po yung resulta nito. I think matatapos na ito by the end of the year.
Sir, Engineer Esguerra? Sir, you're on mute po.
First, the number one thing that Yusek Guevara mentioned about a social thing. In fact, it's in RA 9003, Section 21, that there should be mandatory segregation of waste. So it's really upon not only the local government, but also upon the citizenry to do their mandatory segregation. And then about the study, you really might wonder how come 19 of the 50 rivers in the country are on the top producers or generators of waste or the source of plastic waste. I would suggest that really a review of that study have to be undertaken. Like, I think most of their bases were on hydrology and weather patterns. That's why a lot of river systems in the country came about. Now, going to solutions, definitely. Well, the other thing is the efforts on the Pasig River Rehabilitation Commission and Adapt Aspero program of DNR, I suppose, had a lot of impact in reducing plastic waste going to the ocean. So I think this should be keep up. But however, first thing is that we don't let the plastics go to the river. So that's great. And then for the technologies, we presented a lot of these technologies that could be adopted. And the thing is, even if we find alternative materials for plastics and still the attitude is still throwing away things, then the pollution of water pollution still gets worse.
Thank you very much, Engineer Ray. Our next question here is, what are the present and future alternative products to single-use plastics? Although na-mention na po natin kanina, siguro para po mas malinaw lang din po. Maybe si Dr. Briones, Engineer Guerra.
So there are substitute materials that are locally available for the use of this using plastics, no, that are not biodegradable. So we develop locally materials like nanoclay, nanoprecipitated calcium carbonate that can be used in a substitute for this plastics material. Ray, any additional?
Yeah, the other thing that, well, most of the technologies that DOST had been researching, and in fact, some of them are already for technology transfer. In fact, we already have takers for some of the materials. The other thing is about the testing of plastics and its alternatives. So the Bureau of Product Standards, Philippine standards that convened the Technical Committee 45 to make sure that any alternative to plastics would perform accordingly. So I think that's one of the important things that we have to consider. Not only do we have substitute materials, but we have to make sure that the quality of those substitutes would perform as similar to what the plastic product was initially intended to do.
Thank you po. Baka may gusto po magdagdag sa ating officials.
Yeah. I think it's also important to add to the conversation about providing alternatives. Yung nabanggit nga ni Sir Ray about performance, and performance not only is not only dictated by its ability to actually be used for the same purpose, no, but also it performs in the same quality. And one of the tenets of quality is actually safety, no. At this period when we are in the pandemic, you would want to have a facility or a system whereby you could distribute food in a very safe manner, no? And we also want to provide alternatives to plastic packaging and products that are not only performing as well, no, as their plastic counterparts, but also possess that same qualities of safety. Isa yun sa mga tinitingnan lalo na when handling food. So we're looking at these technologies, and as already mentioned, there are certain alternatives. Certainly there are alternatives to this, but mayroong binabagay, yun yung sinasabi natin. Mayroong mga klase ng mga materials na bagay sa pag-handle ng food na fresh. Meron ding bagay na klase ng material na binabagayan yung ipe-prepare pa lang, and so on and so forth. So these are we're at that point where we're trying to look at these different technologies that will match certain type of food and food preparations.
For our next question, waste obviously come from human households generated, and there's industrial and even medical ones. Again, against this unending cycle of waste generation from all quarters, how is DOST and its agencies addressing these wastes? Is the approach different for each kind of waste? What's the gravest danger that wastes pose on humans and environment? Sige po, from
Sige, mauna na ulit siguro ako.
Yes,
Maganda
sir.
yung present ni Yusek Gab kanina no, on how we're sort of approaching this problem about wastes. One is first, yun nga planning about all of these things. Hindi pwedeng parang saka natin solve pag nandyan na yung problema ng waste. No? So we're planning for that circular economy. Including, para sasadyain talaga natin. No? Number two is that we want to make processes in our manufacturing, in our industries more green, no? So ito yung sinasabi natin, make green, no? So lahat ng gagawin sana natin, sana wala nang tapon, no? And every time and any time that we create certain products, they can be made in an environmentally friendly manner without much waste and produces less waste if consumed. But it's inevitable that you produce waste from certain processes, even in at the level of consumption. Meaning, kapag as ordinary citizens, we generate waste. So the question therefore is that what can we do with the waste? So kanina meron din tayong line up na mga produkto, may mga projects that address exactly just that, no? How are we going to treat or how are we going to use this waste and turn them into something that's valuable or something that's usable, no? So yun naman yung pangatlo. And then yung pang-apat is, well, inevitably meron talagang lulusot pa rin sa ating environment, no? They will still go through our environment. So we are also supporting, and there are a lot of already technologies that will help us treat waste in water, wastes in general, solid wastes. Kagaya nung yung waste to energy facility na sinuportahan natin, no? The reason why we're looking at that alternative is to see the possibility of us, no, at their final as a final destination for particularly for solid waste, explore their energy generation potential. Because if we have that kind of answer, we will be able to provide again inputs to our policymakers, to our local government units on the right size, the right performance, the right capacity for their waste to energy conversion technologies that they can perhaps avail of. So yun, kinokompleto namin yung lahat ng apat na areas na yun pagdating sa waste management.
Yeah, Ivan,
Yes, Secretary.
dugtungan ko lang yung binanggit ni Dr. Paringit about waste to energy. I think we should have a very, shall we say, a strong, comprehensive nationwide program on waste to energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sec. Any comments pa po from our officials?
From ITDI,
Yes, ma'am.
in terms of R&D, we are going green. Research on new alternatives and new materials that are environmentally friendly for use in packaging and any other usage. And then number one also to be considered is yung also for the recycling. This kasi we cannot really avoid waste materials. So one R&D that we are also doing is the recycling of this waste material into something high value products. So example na yung waste to energy. And then number two, yung reduction na din sana ng waste. So we are also trying to develop that some technologies on that the reduction. And yun ang aming ongoing study on the life cycle assessment. Kasi importante talaga din yun. in identifying a packaging material for this life cycle assessment from the raw material to up to the end. So, importante ang life cycle assessment.
Thank you very much.
Maybe Ray can also add.
Engineer Ray.
Yeah, actually, in plastic recycling, meron tayong primary, secondary, tertiary, saka quaternary. Yung primary is yung, yung plastic bottle mo, PET bottle mo, lalagyan ng tubig, lalagyan mo ulit ng tubig. So that's primary. And secondary is, meron na rin ng ITDI niyan, yung mga plastic densifier. So it's more on the physical. So you're remelting plastic para magawa ulit siyang either you upcycle or you could recycle it like mga paving blocks with na-present na to ni Dr. Annabel kanina. And then yung tertiary, yung chemical recycling, wherein we have this pyrolyzer. Yung pyrolyzer, yung plastic, you heat it up, walang direct contact yung flame sa plastic, and then you practically, it's not only melting, but yung depolymerization so that the plastic ay babalik siya sa kanyang original state na petroleum. So we have a project here. In fact, for the pilot testing siya ngayon, I think sa Parañaque or sa Las Piñas, hindi ko recall yung exact place. And then yung, but there are emerging technologies in depolymerization. Siguro ito nga yung isang challenge na ipopost ko doon sa aking mga kasama sa Material Science Division ng ITDI. You return the plastic into its original monomer or polymer. And then yung fourth niya, yung nabanggit ni Secretary, yung waste to energy or yung recovering heat from the or energy from the thermal destruction of plastic.
Okay, sir. Our next question is here. Is there any technology or initiative available that can be rolled out to households to help in this waste reduction or management objective apart from the LGU directive of garbage segregation? Meron po ba tayong ganoon?
Ivan, siguro sagutin ko.
Ray, our bioreactor, Ray.
Yung sa household kasi, of course, sa sobrang liit, mahirap naman gawin siyang economically viable. Although we do have, for biodegradable materials like vegetables, food waste, etc. Meron na kaming mga pang-household na composter. So, in fact, ginagamit yan sa ilang mga households dito sa Metro Manila at meron na tayong mga accredited fabricators for that. So kung kailangan umorder, doon tayo sa accredited fabricator. However, for plastic kasi medyo energy intensive kasi ang key lang is really to segregate the waste into generally four. It's biodegradable, recyclable, and residual, and yung special waste, yung halimbawa yung mga bandages na nagkaroon ng blood, etc. So yun yung special waste. So for plastic, we have a 8 kilo per day capacity na electric densifier. Siguro mga pang community siya, hindi naman pang household lang. So importante i-segregate doon sa household, siguro doon malinis yung plastic para pag dinala doon kasi all barangays are supposed to have their materials recovery facility or MRF. So doon naman pwedeng i-implement yung ating mga ilang technologies.
Thank you, sir. We have here a question. As a normal citizen, I care about the lessening of waste and carbon footprint. I make as much as I can. How can I support this technology adaptation or adoption? Should we call on our LGU to adopt these technologies? Yan po ay tanong from our netizen na nag-monitor po sa Facebook.
I would like to answer that. It can be coursed through the local government units to adopt these technologies, or they can, as an individual, they can also adopt these technologies that are available in ITDI.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next question po, based on studies, sachet packages are among the top single-use plastic polluting in the Philippines. Does DOST think the Philippines should prohibit producing products in sachets? From our officials.
If I may give
Yes,
a
again.
not a scientific answer. You know, in the Philippines, this is a cultural practice eh. Mahilig tayo talaga sa tingi-tingi eh. That's why sachets have been invented. I think the technologies that were cited by Dr. Annabelle, Dr. Ray, and Dr. Eric show that if this were segregated, there is a way to make sure that this does not pollute our waters, it does not do bad things. Pero kailangan po yung segregation, kailangan may materials recovery facility, mga simple requirements po yan na kayang-kaya pong gawin ng ating mga LGU kung mamarapatin lang po nila.
Thank you, ma'am.
I add to that,
Esek Boy.
I think ultimately it also boils down to the education of the public, no? Kung na-miss na natin yung henerasyon ng mga parents, okay, na parang sige-sige lang, ano? Kung ano gustong gawin, kailangan siguro ay maituro ito sa mga bata. Kung minsan nagugulat ako dahil may mga bata na mas conscious pa sila kaysa sa kanilang magulang, no? Kung yan siguro ay magagawa natin para sa lahat ng bata, napakalaking bagay para sa atin. May mga LGUs na may magagandang proyekto. Noon narinig ko sa Marikina na meron silang incentive sa pagsasauli sa gobyerno o pagdadala sa gobyerno ng kanilang mga basurang mahirap i-recycle. At nito nga nakaraang pagbibigay ng grant ni Dr. Paringit doon sa 14 na startups, may nabasa ako na may isa doon na nag-develop ng bendo machine na imbes na nagtitinda ng produkto, tumatanggap ng mga plastic bottles na isinasauli at may corresponding tawag dito, points na ibinibigay. Dr. Eric, baka pwede mo akong dagdagan dyan.
Yes po, Sekboy. We've come across a startup which developed what we call a reverse vendo machine. Ang ginagawa po nito, it takes in yung pong ating mga paboritong PET bottles, di ba, coming from your soft drinks, bottled drinks, and then it gives you hindi coins or hindi rin pera, but rather points for that can be useful actually for the institutions or the places where that vendo machine is located. So, we're trying to support these startups as a way to come up with a prototype para magawa po ito. I think they already have a prototype but they would like to streamline it. Medyo mabulto kasi. Gusto nilang paliitin para talaga maging vendo machine ang dating. No? So, these are all parts of that effort, no? By our, no less than our millennials. No? Ito yung sinasabi ni Sekboy kanina na mas conscious pa sa environment ang ating mga millennials kasi sila nakaisip ng mga concepts na ito, and we think that with the growing level of awareness among our younger groups, we will be able to have this rolled out as a successful enterprise, yun po yung I think this is a 1-year project to have them come up with a prototype which they can put out in the market to test it, and then later on perhaps they would be able to produce it and then distribute it and make it viable, no, for every street corner that we go. Baka yun na lang gagawin natin, no? Sa halip na itapon sa basura yung mga plastics natin. Thank you po.
Thank you, Dr. Paringit. For our next question, what national policy can be implemented to address the problem with plastics, or are the policies now enough?
Can you repeat the question?
Ma'am, so, what national policy can be implemented to address the problem with plastics, or are the present policies that we have enough already?
I think we have the policies, medyo we're gearing up to action, to put some action into these policies. And the reason why we are holding this presser is to announce that DOST-STII shared is funding economic and life cycle analysis of certain plastic products in response to that particular policy that is already in place. And sagutin din natin yung tanong ni Dexter Cabalsa. Sabi kasi niya, can you comment on the impression raised by Yusek Antiporda that the DOST was delaying the implementation of the ban on non-environmentally acceptable products? Ang comment lang po namin, magkakasama naman po kami doon sa National Solid Waste Management Committee.
Sila chair.
Po. Sila po ang chair na nagde-decide po kung ano po itong mga NEAPs. Totoo po na sumulat po si Secretary Boy kay Secretary Simatu regarding yung yung kailangang gawing aksyon para po dito sa mga NEAPs. Kasi po, kunyari, lang po to, example lang, nag-ban ka kunyari ng plastic straw, papalitan mo kunyari ng ibang klaseng material. May mga epekto po yan sa certain users So sa amin po, kailangan meron tayong viable alternative na ma-address yung particular need doon. Yun naman pong steerer, nagbibiruan kami ni Secretary Boy kasi pareho kami engineer. Pag nagtimpla kami ng kape, lalagay muna namin yung creamer at saka yung kape, tapos bubuhusan namin na umiinit na tubig. Hindi mo na kailangan haluin. So may mga simple na paraan na hindi mo na kailangan ng stirrer. Pero going back to the question, if you replace that stirrer, plastic stirrer, with let's say a wooden stirrer, may mga tanong na ganito. Meron bang filth galing dun sa stirrer na mapupunta dun sa iinumin mong kape? Is that healthy for you? So these are questions that we need to answer first before we prescribe na tanggalin mo na yan at ito ang ipalit mo. Yun lang naman po yung aming gustong gawin. And dito po sa pag-aaral, aabutin lang naman po ng 1 taon, masasagot na po natin yung tanong na yan. Ano ba yung tatanggalin mo at ano yung ipapalit mo? So, sana po nasagot na po namin yung tanong na iyan at magkakasama naman po kami dun sa NWSMC at napag-uusapan naman po yan doon. Salamat po.
Thank you, Ma'am Gev. Yes, Doc Eric.
Yeah, dadagdagan ko lang po yun. Isa kasi sa mga yung tanong about the policy, ano yung mga policy input natin. Tama po yun, para nakikita naman namin, marami na tayong mga key policies that will actually be already supporting our cause for environmental sustainability. No? Nakikita natin yon. Ang kailangan nating tingnan at siguro ngayon at kailangan mag-concentrate na tayo ay paano magplano at paano mag-target. No? And the target, I think, is not for tomorrow. The target is long drawn and it should be well thought. No? Ibig sabihin, pag pinaplinano natin, sige, okay tayo sa 1 taon, ibaba natin to. Pero tingin namin, parang mahirap yata kung bukas to kasi hindi natin pa napaghandaan kahapon. No? Ibig sabihin nito, kailangan unti-unti, kailangan meron tayong pinampapalit habang tinitigil natin yung pag-produce ng mga single-use plastics na makakategorize na under NEAP. No? So, yun ang, dun din tayo magko-contribute kasi habang naghahanap tayo ng solusyon para ma-reduce, no? Parang find and replace, di ba? Parang nagpa-find and replace tayo ng appropriate technology, unti-unti na rin nababawasan. And hopefully, kasama rin yung industry para naman mag-adapt. So it's a three-way street between the policy, the technology, and the industry, no? Taking on these technologies as they adapt them. Kaya ako nabanggit kanina na the government takes it as a matter of policy, na ito yung policy natin, pero gagawa ng plano, and then ito naman si industry, sasabihin niya, sige, we'll take on that technology. May mga iba pang aspects kasi, for example, alam niyo siguro parang parallels na pwede kong i-draw na hindi related sa waste, ay yung dun sa energy, no? Dati-dati sabi, mahal-mahal naman ng solar, ang mahal-mahal ng hydro, ang mahal-mahal ng wind, no? Pero bakit tayo parang may mga nag-invest, no? May mga nagsabi, sige, we'll transition to these renewable energies. Kasi merong na-apply na taripa para kahit papaano maging competitive siya sa market, 'di ba? So gusto natin habang nagpapasok tayo ng something that will be environment friendly, kailangan din sinususugan mo yan o sinusuportahan mo rin ng mga pulisiya na para naman maging friendly doon sa alternative. Pero hindi naman parate, no? Kundi meron din parang phase-in time yan. Pero ito pong sinasabi ko ay parang hindi na yata sa cloud ng kaya naming ng ginagawa namin sa DOST, no? But we would be happy to cooperate with other departments to finding ways to make that happen, to make that transition happen. Yun siguro yung parang where I'm driving at. It's actually a transition. The transition needs a plan.
Ay, dadagdag ko lang dudugtong ko sa sinabi ni Dr. Eric. Makikipag-usap na po tayo sa Commission on Climate Change. Kasi po, yan po yung driver kung bakit po natin ginagawa itong ating tinatawag namin na circular economy. Sa pag-uusap po namin, napag-agrihan namin na kailangan talagang magbigay ng incentive or ng tulong ang gobyerno dito sa change na gagawin natin. And ang kinatutuwa po namin, inassure po kami ng Department of Finance na siyang nag-chair ng Climate Change Commission at saka ng commissioners na tutulong po sila maghanap po ng funding para po masagawa po natin itong transition na ating ginagawa. Punta po sa using, keeping, thinking green. Kasi po may presyo po talaga kapag magpapalit ka from what you normally use dito papunta po sa mas green alternatives. Alam po natin may presyo yan sa umpisa pero in the end, we are securing the future of our children. Kaya po worth it po na gastusan niya.
Maraming salamat po, Yusek Dev. Our next question would be, ano po yung reaction ng DOST sa planong pagsasampa ng kaso ng grupong Oceana laban sa National Solid Waste Management Commission dahil daw po sa mabagal na paggawa po ng NEAP list and other functions under the RA 9003.
Lahat naman po may karapatang mag-file ng cases.
Thank you, sir. Noted on that, sir.
Next question.
Our next question po ay ano po ba yung iba pang materials na pinag-aaralan ng DOST na maisama sa NEAP?
We'll ask Doc Annabel and Dr. Engineer Ray to answer that.
Aside doon sa aming naaral na nanoclay, na nano-precipitated calcium carbonate, meron din kami yung use of starch para maging substitute material of starch, and then other polymers that are bio-based, hindi siya fossil based. So yun yung mga iba pang materials na aming pag-aaralan to add nung aming naaral na.
Doc Annabel, ang tanong niya yung isasama sa NEAP. Ang sinasabi mo yung pangpapalit natin eh.
Okay.
Oo. Ano pa yung mga iba daw na maisasama sa non-environmentally acceptable?
Mapag-aaralan pa natin muna, hindi tayo basta-bastang makapag-suggest.
Engineer Ray?
Sige, Ray.
Banggitin nga natin yung pinag-uusapan natin with the Bureau of Product Standards, yung polymateria. Ano ba yun?
Sir, yung kanilang material ay biodegradable. Yun yung technology nila na to make their product biodegradable. So yun yung technology nila na pumasa din siya sa PES 9017 na pag-test.
Ano raw material involved?
Ano yun, sir? Company secret nila.
Okay.
Pero practically, sir, it's an additive that would make yung ordinary plastic na polymers na maging biodegradable. That's according to their claim.
So, may chance ba na yun ay magamit dito? Ano
Ah.
kailangan? Ano kailangan gawin?
Ang isang kailangan gawin ay yung mga requirements sa testing niya ay maisama sa Philippine National Standards kasi para sigurado tayo dun sa quality ng kanyang
At magkaroon tayo ng testing facility. Pero yung standards, ang bahala doon ay yung standards Bureau.
Bureau of Product
Bureau Product Standards.
So ano yon, isa rin possibility yon. And if there are other materials claiming na biodegradable, we can study that.
Yes, Tech Boy, if there are new materials available in the market, we can start. Yes, sir. Okay, Ivan.
Thank you. Thank you, Ma'am Gel.
Balikan ko lang yung tanong kanina, yung ano ba yung
Idadagdag.
pa sa NEAP. Last May 6 po, nag-meeting yung National Solid Waste Management Commission at sinabi nila at pagkasunduan doon, ang isasama sa potential na isama sa NEAP ay yung plastic fork, plastic spoon, plastic knives, saka yung plastic labo na tinatawag, yung 15 microns below ang thickness niya. So yun yung and they're supposed to communicate that to DOST officially. So right now nandun pa lang po sa minutes nung kanilang and also I'd like to add, nung 2014 po, ang DOST nag-conduct na po ng life cycle assessment ng grocery bags. Kasi po ang nasa RA 9003, kung ano man po yung substitute material doon sa gusto nating i-declare na NEAP, dapat ang price nun is no more than 10% of the price of the material to be substituted. Nung time na yon, ang nagiging alternative lang were paper saka yung eco bag na tinatawag. However, nung 2014 yung eco bag yata nasa 40 pesos per piece. Samantalang yung plastic grocery bag libreng binibigay. On the other hand, si paper po, nung pinag-aralan natin, yung kanyang environmental footprint, whether it's carbon dioxide generation, wastewater generation, mas lubos po, mas mataas po dun sa grocery bag na ordinaryo. So noong 2014, meron na po tayong ganung effort. So ngayon, ulitin natin yung effort na yan, pag-aralan ngayon itong mga nabanggit kong materials. At yung alternative. So hindi lang po yung materials ito, titingnan din natin yung alternative para ma-compare natin. Salamat po.
Thank you very much, Engineer Ray. So I think we have exhausted all our questions. Thank you for our media partners who joined us today. We'd like to ask for some final words from our DOST officials. Let's start with Dr. Briones, ma'am.
Kami dito sa ITDI ay sumusuporta sa ano ng gobyerno natin when it comes sa green economy, green R&D, and then we are more into holistic approach, no, in dealing with this non-environmentally acceptable products. So we shall do the scientific way, yung pagkandak ng life cycle assessment para mapag-aralan yung complete or entire cycle ng from the raw material extraction hanggang sa manufacture, distribution, sale, use, reuse, recycling, disposal, and transport. At ang aming strategic plan pa rin is to continue R&D on green alternatives for plastics. Thank you po.
Thank you, Dr. Briones. Dr. Eric? Sir, nakamute po kaya.
Yes, kaisa po ninyo ang DOST-STII shared, no, pagdating sa paghahanap ng mga solusyon upang mapanatiling malinis at malinis at maganda ang ating kapaligiran, no. Kabilang dito of course yung ating pamamaraan, no, na makibahagi ang industriya sa pamamagitan ng paglinang ng teknolohiya na makakatulong upang maging green, no, maging malinis yung pamamaraan natin ng paggawa. So pangalawa po, nabanggit ko na kanina sa aking statement that partnerships and collaborations are important, no? And we need to work together towards achieving these ends, no? And then pangatlo po, ulitin ko po yung yung namin, yung mantra namin ngayon na plan green, make green, turn green, and then keep green, no? make it so it's green all the time, no? Yun ang ating kasi this is now the age of that circular economy. Wala nang tapon, no? Wala na dapat tapon sa ating economy. So makakaasa po kayo na pag-iigtingin pa namin, tutuloy pa namin yung iba't iba nating programa para makatulong tayo, no, sa ating cause for environmental sustainability. Maraming salamat po and good afternoon.
Sir, Ma'am Gev.
Thank you, Ivan. I would like to thank the members of media who are with us today. Salamat po at willing po kayong pakinggan ang mga teknolohiya at ang research and development na ginagawa po ng DOST para ma-address po itong ating problema sa solid waste management. Inaasahan po namin na kayo po ay aming kasama at katulong sa pag-educate ng public ukol dito po sa single-use plastic, sa non-environmentally acceptable products, at kung ano po yung mga pwede nilang gawin at the individual level, at the barangay level, at the LGU level para po maibsan itong ating problema ng solid waste. Maraming salamat po at magandang agham sa inyong lahat.
Salamat po, Ma'am Gev. Finally, Secretary de la Peña.
Yes, I have a few things to leave. First of all, unang-una, we will incorporate the issues and concerns that we have here in our discussions with our regional offices. Kasi hindi lang naman Maynila ang Pilipinas, at ito namang problema tungkol sa non-biodegradable plastics or non-acceptable na ito ay problema sa buong Pilipinas, sa lahat ng rehiyon. Pangalawa ay gusto ko lang ipabatid sa lahat na isa ito sa dahilan kung bakit gusto namin magkaroon ng mga up-to-date na mga facilities dahil maraming kailangan gawin na talagang nangangailangan ng mga bagong facilities. Katulad nung nabanggit ko kanina na merong nag-o-offer ng new material, wala naman kaming pan-testing. At yan ang good news naman na gusto kong sabihin na abangan ninyo within the next 2 months ay mag-inaugurate kami ng mga facilities ng ITDI na may kinalaman sa green technology. So inaugurate namin yung green packaging facility or laboratory at yun ding aming metrology laboratory for chemistry. Yan ay makakatulong sa amin. At gusto ko din banggitin na pinapalakas namin ang aming grupo dealing with material science ITDI, in fact, pati doon sa aming Advanced Manufacturing Center ay involved din sila dahil itong new materials ay talagang concern sa buong daigdig. At siguro yung iba pang mga kaalaman katulad ng may kinalaman sa nanotechnology ay baka makatulong din. At siguro sa pagbibiro ko lang, pagka talagang hindi na natin ma-solve, gamitin na natin yung ating mga space technology, ipadala na natin sa ibang planeta yung ating mga basura. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you po, Secretary de la Peña. We'd like to thank as well our DOST officials who are with us today. DOST Undersecretary Renato Saladum, good afternoon, sir. Thank you po for joining us today. Our government employees from other DOST agencies. We'd like to thank our friends from the media for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, sir. Sir, we hope that we are able to share with you what DOST is doing in helping address our environmental concerns in solid waste management. This has been Ivan Robles from DOST Pisherd. Stay safe, everyone, and see you again on our next webinar. Good afternoon po.
Thank you, Ivan.
Sir.
Thank you, Norly. Thank you, Jeng, Janina, Rudy.